Hi, I'm Bob Tabor with www.learnvisualstudio.net. In this lesson, we're going to combine several ideas that we just covered in previous lessons in order to create what I call a poor man's hamburger navigation layout. Now, why am I calling it a poor man's version? Because I'm trying to give you the simplest, cleanest, clearest path so that you can implement hamburger navigation right away in your Windows 10 apps. Now, there is a rich man's version of this detailed at Jerry Nixon's blog here at the shortcut on screen. And like I said, Jerry Nixon works for Microsoft. He's done an awesome job with this particular article. Let me pull it up here. Implementing an awesome hamburger button with XAML's new split view control. And the reason why I would call it a rich man's version is because it's more robust, it includes a bunch of more features, but it's also a bit more complex if you are indeed an absolute beginner. So just keep that in mind, and you might want to visit it and bookmark it for later. Maybe after we go through several more lessons, you'll be able to use his version instead of mine. What I want to do now is to recreate the hamburger layout that we saw in the Money app. So when I click the little hamburger icon at the top, the split view opens up. When I click it again, it closes, and all we can see is the icons. Furthermore, whatever we currently select, you can see that one of the secondary colors, in this case a darker green color, highlights the fact that we're no longer on the Home tab, but rather we're on what I guess is the watch list. Okay. And we're not going to implement any of these other pieces of the puzzle. We've already talked about many of them, and I'm going to let you do that whenever we get to our next challenge. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go through this lesson, is because we're going to use the hamburger navigation layout in several of the apps that we're going to build together later in the series, but we're also going to use it in an upcoming challenge, what I'm going to call the Hamburger Heaven Challenge, that will allow you to kind of implement the full the bar at the top with the search and the back arrow, as well as the hamburger down the side. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I've created a new project called Hamburger Example. You can see here, all I've done is just open up the app.xaml.cs and I removed the frame counter. Let's open up the main page.xaml and begin working together. I'm going to get rid of the designer view again, just because at this point it's in the way. And the first thing I'm going to do is create a couple of row definitions. So grid.row definitions, and we're going to create 2 row definitions this time. And so we're going to set the height equal to auto on the first one, and then we'll set the height equal to star on the second one. Okay. All right. The next thing we're going to do is create a relative panel, and I'm going to set that into grid.row equals 0, so I'm not even going to put that on there, honestly. I'll just leave it off. And then inside of that, we're going to put a button. We'll come back to that in a moment. But that'll be our hamburger button. Beneath that, what I want to do is add a split view. And here we're going to add this into the grid.row equals 1. So that second row that takes up the star size. And this is where we're going to do the majority of our work. And inside of the split view, like we talked about in the previous lesson, I'm going to use a list box control for all the reasons I talked about in that previous lesson. So you'll see it all come together here in just a moment. And the list box is going to require us to create a number of list box items. So I know we're going to have several of those as well. I'll just copy and paste a couple here like this. So that's our general layout of what we're going to do in this lesson. Now we just have to fill in the details. Hopefully up to this point it makes sense. The list box will sit inside of the split view. Each list box item will have an icon on the left and then text on the right. As you select an item from the list box, we're going to handle the click event or the selection changed event, and I don't know if we're going to do anything with it. I just want to show you how we would actually use that. All right, so let's start here with the button control, and the first thing I want to do is give it a name. So we're going to name it Hamburger Button, and then what I want to do is choose a icon that represents the hamburger. You'll recall that it is it has 3 vertical lines stacked above each other. And to do that, we're going to find that there's a specific font family available on Windows 10 devices called Segoe MDL2 Assets. So what I'm going to do is open up the character map application. You can get to this by going to your Cortana search bar in your taskbar on the desktop and just typing in character map, and that should find it. And what you can do is like scroll all the way through all of these graphic assets for this specific font, Segoe MDL2 Assets. And I happen to know where this one is at, where the hamburger icon is. And I just have to find it again here. So bear with me 1 second here. Obviously, with so many to choose from, it's easy to lose track. All right, there I go. It's right here, and you can see that the most important part of this is what you see down here in this little status bar. You see a capital U plus E700, and it's marked for private use. We don't care anything about that. The only thing that's important to us is the E700 part. Okay, so let's do this. Let's set the font family to Segoe MDL2 Assets, and then we're going to choose to set the content property equal to the E700, and I'm going to put something before and after that E700. I'm going to suffix it with a closing semicolon, and then prior to that I'm going to add an ampersand, a pound sign, and an X. All right. Now I'm also going to set the font size large so we can actually see it. You probably wouldn't set it to 36 in a real application. You just have to kind of test it and see what works for you. And I think that's pretty much it. I think we're going to add the click event handler for it to open and close it. So we'll get back to that in just a moment. All right, so now let's take a look at what it looks like in the designer. All right, let's blow this up a little bit so we can actually see what we're looking at. All right, you can see we've got our button with an icon on it. Awesome. And we could style up that button to be one of the primary colors for our apps. I'm just not going to do that in this particular example. Okay, so we have our button, and now let's move on to the split view itself. I'm going to give it a name because we're going to need to reference it programmatically. So a name equals my split view. All right, and here we're going to set the display mode equal to compact overlay. So what I want is for it to show icons, and then when it comes out I want it to overlay any of the content that's underneath of it. Okay, so that's why I'm choosing that display mode. When the pane is open, I'm going to set its width to 200, and when it's closed I'm going to be around this size. I may adjust it a little bit, but I'm going to set the compact panel length equal to about 56. When I was getting ready for this, 56 seemed right, but we can monkey with that a little bit later. Also, I want the horizontal alignment equal to left on this, and there might be some other settings that we'll want as we test this and play around with it. Go ahead and put all these on separate lines. All right, next up is the list box, and this is where we're going to actually display items. So let's go selection mode equals single. We only want to select one at a time, not multiples. That wouldn't make sense in this context. And when the selection changes, I'm going to give it a name too. So let's give it name equals icons list box, something like that. And then we're going to go ahead and set the selection changed equal to a new event. All right, we'll come back to that later. All right, and then we're going to set for each of the text box items, we're going to do something like this. We're going to open it up, and we're going to need to add a stack panel. And we want what comes next to be oriented horizontally. Then I'm going to put a text block, and this first text block will be the icon, and the second text block will be the actual text. So where will we get the icon from? Well, once again, we're going to go to the font family equals Sago MDL to assets, and then we'll set the font size equal to 36. And then finally we're going to set the text equal to. Now let's find another icon we want to use with a character map. We can choose any of these. For this example, you'll just have to hunt through and find something that you're looking for. Let me choose something relatively simple like this little share button that we would see all over Windows 10, especially on the Edge browser. So I'm going to select that, and it's E72D. All right, E72D. E72D. And I'm going to put a semicolon after it. I'll put an ampersand, pound sign, lowercase x above it, like so. And I just realized my mistake here. Font size equals 36. Great. All right, then next up I want to put the text that comes next to it, right? So we'll put the text here equal to first option. Very generic. You could come up with something better than that. How about I just rename that to share? Maybe that'd be better. We'll set its font size equal to 36. And we'll see what that looks like. We may have to come back and adjust that. All right, so we're going to do the same thing for the other list box items. In fact, we'll just create two. Let's open up our character map and find another icon we want to use. I'll go ahead and use this star. Anything that you find is fine. In this case, E734. E734, semicolon after it, ampersand, pound, X before it. And then let's set the font family. We'll go MDL to assets, and then finally the font size will be 36. And then I'll just put here text equals favorites, and we'll put its font size equal to 36 as well. All right, so I think I have enough here to work with. The one thing I will want to do though is whenever the selection changes, well actually let's back up to the hamburger. Whenever somebody clicks the hamburger, remember what we want to do? We want to show or hide the split view. So let's go and select F12 on our keyboard. So we're here in the code behind, and what I want to do is my split view is pane open equals not my split view dot is pane open, like so. And remember, we talked about how that would show and hide the split views pane. Let's run it and see what happens now. All right, not exactly what we had in mind. I think I see the error of my ways here. I forgot one crucial little thing here, and that is we need to go split view dot pane and wrap that around our list box because it's sitting outside of the pane right now. Great. Let's run it again. Okay, so I see that it mostly works. The hover works great. There's some margin issues here, and that font is way too large, but we're very close. Tell you what, let's go ahead and modify that font size down to 24. That should help. And then I want to put some margin space to the left of this text block. So we'll set margin. And the reason is because that second text block is bleeding too close to the first text block. So we want to set some space in there. We'll put 20 pixels to the left of both of these text blocks. Great. Now let's run it one more time. There we go. That looks nice. So then the other thing that we'll want to do now is to just create a split view. We'll set the split view's content. And for our purposes, I'm just going to put a text block in there. I'm going to give it a name. Just to prove that the click actually works, or that the selection changed actually works. Furthermore, I'm going to change or add to this list box item. I'm going to give it a name. So we're going to call this first one the share list box item, and then the second one, give it a name of favorites list box item. And now in the list box selection changed event handler, what I want to do is put my mouse cursor there and hit F12. That'll open it up in the code behind. And I can do something as simple as this. What do we name that again? Share list box index. So share is selected, else if favorites list box item is selected. And in each of these cases, result text block.text equals share, and then we'll do the same here. Result text block.text equals, and here's where you'd probably want to do what we talked about earlier with navigation and load in another page into a frame, and that frame would sit in the middle where we currently have the content area. Okay, and that's something that you're going to actually need to do for the next challenge. All right, so let's see what we have here. All right, so you can see that when we select either of the buttons, it changes the selected item, and I can even select and then go away and it still selected it, okay, because we have overlay and not inline. All right, so hopefully that all made sense. You're going to need this skill, this poor man's hamburger navigation layout for our upcoming challenge, and as we move along, like I said before. Okay, so I think we're just about ready to get started with that. After a quick review, we'll get started with that challenge, and we'll see you there. Thanks.